Krista is glowing this morning.
Just about.
Okay, I see Rick, I see Roma, I see the outline of Krista. No Deb yet. We've got Carrie Ann, Dan.
Deb may not be on for a little while. She had a.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Deb is talking about the exact same thing we're going to be talking about here. She's just doing it on the NACO side. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners Zoom staff meeting for Thursday, May 28th, 2020. This meeting is subject to the Open Meetings Act. If you're watching in person, there's a copy of the Open Meetings Act located at the rear of the room, 112 and 113 in the City County building. You can also review the Open Meetings Act at aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings. That's aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings, or you can review it in state statute at 84-1401 through 84-1414. The first item up is approval of the staff meeting minutes for May 21st, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Abstain.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries 3 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay. So the next item up is the legislative update with Joe and Brennan. Shall we talk about the big news?
Happy to do it. And I think obviously, commissioners, you're aware that the biggest update is the announcement from the governor yesterday about CARES Act funding and how he anticipates utilizing that funding in Nebraska. I'm going to turn it over to Brennan, who followed the press conference yesterday and also got some of the update materials. I would note for commissioners' benefit that there is a narrative, a very brief narrative in our memo, but also then simultaneously there is a copy of the PowerPoint that was forwarded yesterday to members of the legislature for your review and comment. This was the PowerPoint the governor used yesterday in his press conference. I'm going to turn it over to Brennan and let him walk us through it.
Absolutely. Good morning, commissioners and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here as always. As Joe mentioned, yes, yesterday the governor in his press conference outlined through a about 45-minute long PowerPoint how he intends to use the CARES dollars coming to Nebraska. Just to walk through, I'll do some general numbers that he outlined, and then we can go back through if that works for you. The total amount of dollars coming from the federal government to Nebraska right now, all in. So we're talking the CARES Act, every other stimulus packages, the direct payments to taxpayers was about $10.8 billion. With the Corona Relief Act, that is about $1.25 billion. And the governor plans to dole it out into about 4 sections to state and local governments, about $180 million. A community cares program that is being built under the Department of Health and Human Services with $85 million, businesses at $392 million, and unemployment trust fund at $427 million. For state and local government, $80 million will be going to the state for reimbursement of direct COVID costs. For local governments, $100 million. It was noted that these costs can be things like PPE, overtime, sanitizing spaces, the costs associated with that, dedicated payroll for public safety employees dealing with COVID. It was noted on the bottom of this PowerPoint that counties will have to be open as usual by June 8th to be eligible for funds. I went back through last night and pulled the exact language. And in order for community or county governments to receive funds, the county courthouse and county offices must be open for business to the public on a non-appointment basis by June 8th, 2020.
So Brennan,
Yeah.
I've got one quick question, and then Commissioner
Yeah.
Robinson. I'm seeing that exact same quote sent to me from NACO from Larry Dix, but they have June 15th. Word for word, exactly the same quote. But so there's some discrepancy on whether or not it's June 15th or June 8th.
The PowerPoint presented by the governor was June 8th.
Right.
And that's what he said.
Yeah, Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, and I I sent Larry a question and I asked for clarification on that. And it is actually going to be the 15th, following the press conference. Apparently what had happened is that there was a conversation and many of the people talked with the governor and convinced him that June 15th would be a better date. It would allow the counties to react in a more planned way. So he said it is going to be the 15th.
Well, I mean,
Thank you.
I appreciate that a week later is superior to a week sooner, but that's still incredibly soon. Basically the governor has issued an ultimatum to counties. Be open by June 15th or don't receive the funding. I also think that there's a lot of our community partners. It sounds like the funding is going to flow through the counties based on what I've heard. So, for example, the city of any money that might come to us or might go to the city of Lincoln would probably flow through us first. So, at least that was what I'd heard as of last night. So, yeah. I'm sorry. Several people had their hands up. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just. One of the things I was going to do is just mention that I can send the email to you. Essentially what it is that the folks apparently from NACO talked with the governor and his staff and convinced it to be the 15th. So that gives us a little bit of time.
Commissioner, the only suggestion I would have is let's make sure that gets said today in that conference, because there's a lot of those conversations happening. So
right.
A multitude of fronts. So I think it's healthy to say let's see what he says to clarify that today.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there is a attached press release to this email, and it is changed to the 15th.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
I will forward it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, with that ultimatum, how do we wish to proceed? I think this is just my first reaction to it. I think we should write a letter to the governor's office. I'm glad for the week extension. I think it needs to be more like a 2-week extension, frankly. Opening up something the size of Lancaster County just simply isn't the same thing as opening up, Kiapaha County. No offense intended at all. We just have a lot of moving parts and a lot of people that we've got to get on the same page. I spoke with Deb about this last night, and we were both of the same mind that we thought the simplest thing to do would be to request a 2-week extension. Now, we were talking June 8th, so maybe we just request a 1-week extension for Lancaster County. Explain to the governor's office that we're all on board for opening up. We've got the plexiglass ordered. We've got these things are being installed. We've got the PPE ordered. We've ordered the temperature taking machine for the courthouse. We're doing all these things in order to reopen safely. But I mean, at a certain point, we're just waiting on backlog, right? We're just waiting on the orders to come in and to get things up and running. So how do people think about requesting an additional week for Lancaster County? I'm not sure we'll get it, but it seems like it's worth trying rather than not. Uh,
I'm fine
Commissioner
with it.
Yocum.
I'm totally on board with that, requesting the additional time. I think that is totally reasonable. And the other piece that I'm questioning is he said that if things are open by appointment, that's not considered open.
Yes.
And I think for crowd control, if nothing else, but certainly for safety, I think that can we ask for that to be waived, or an opportunity to schedule appointments for everyone's convenience in addition to a limited number of walk-ins or something like that.
Yeah. Joe,
And it's not
Brennan,
going to be customer friendly to make people just wait for 5 or 6 hours because there's that much volume.
right.
Um,
Joe, Brennan, what do you think? Are we being, I mean, am I being stupid by asking for an additional week? It's fine to say if I am.
no. I understand the arguments. I just wouldn't get your hopes up that week is going to come.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
The reality is I think my sense, and have I had a direct conversation? No, I've not heard this out of their mouth, but my sense is there's a very active desire to get things back up and running and back to normalcy. And I think that's going to be one of the driving factors in this conversation about that. And so I would just say, I think you can request it. My only concern is I would plan for the 15th, and I would not take that 22nd as a potential.
Last night when we were talking about the 8th, I thought a 2-week extension was more likely. Now that I hear that it's been moved to the 15th, I think that's probably the extension we're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's worth asking, but
Mm-hmm.
I agree that I think we should probably be looking at the 15th, and that is almost certainly going to be. I'm receiving a pile of messages right now from different department heads and different people saying, but our supplies won't be in by then. Yes, we're aware that's exactly the problem we're discussing.
Mm-hmm.
And
what I would like to see, if we're going to make this request, is the examples of that sort of thing in there, saying our PPE supplies for this office will not arrive until its estimated delivery on this date. We're not going to be in a position to have the safety precautions in place. We're doing everything we can to have the plexiglass up and spacing. I think Commissioner Yocum's comment is dead on. I mean, I think we could say we also want to make sure that we're taking this in tranches to some extent, right? Like we're not having 500 people show up at the courthouse in order to process things that, they strongly feel like they need to get in right away to do. And we know we're going to get those. So I would go through and do a pretty detailed analysis of why we need that extra week.
yeah, and I think we can. So I imagine we'll be talking about this today, both here in the legislative update and at 10:45 in the COVID-19 update and response. I've asked a number of people to join us for that, so that we can have a more detailed, in-depth conversation at 10:45 about this very thing and sort of how we want to respond to the governor's office. So, Captain Whitty from the sheriff's office will be on with us then. Karen Peterson, I saw, was already on. I know she said that she'll be on at 10:45. I've also invited someone from the city, because if we're going ahead with this at full speed, I don't think that there's, so I don't know if it's going to be Jennifer Brinkman or somebody else from the mayor's office, but I invited a city representative just because I think it's a big, broad conversation. So there's going to be a number of people who are going to jump on with us at 10:45 to have that conversation. Anything else regarding this? The date the governor has set, the legislature.
Well, and I would just note, I know you all got our news alert that one member of the legislature has been diagnosed and is hospitalized currently with COVID-19. I do not have an update for commissioners on his status. I think it's safe to say, I think based upon as the family's asking to be that privacy to be respected, I think that's a completely fair request. But I'm sure Senator Mosier and his family would appreciate thoughts and prayers at a time like this. So I don't necessarily see it affecting directly their return date, but I certainly think you now have at least 2 members of the legislature directly affected by COVID-19, in both Senator Vargas, who lost his father in New York, and then Senator Mosier directly. So I know there's a lot of concern on the part of those who may have underlying health conditions and health concerns about coming back into that very small room and trying to be spaced out 6 feet apart. So,
Yeah. Well, I think we all hope and pray that it stops there. I don't know if I'm particularly hopeful about it, but I certainly hope that's the end of it.
one thing that commissioners, you will be receiving as part of our weekly update tomorrow, when it comes out, is we are going to be attaching a document that contains, just by way of reminder, and it will be sent again right before the session starts, that has senators' individual emails, their staff names, and that sort of thing. And as we approach that start date, it's going to be particularly useful to use electronic communications because of the fact that we don't know yet how many people will be let into that building. We don't know yet what some of those, so just preparing ourselves for a lot of electronic communication, I think, is going to be very, very important. So we've gone ahead and prepared this separate document with email addresses, as well as staff names and telephone number for their offices in that document. So you can watch that, as that will be an attachment to our report tomorrow.
So it's definitely a both and here. We have to begin to prepare, like the 15th is the date, but we also have to build the case that another week would be very helpful. And we've already showing good faith by all the steps we are taking and going to continue to take, and make our appeal based on that.
I think so. I think we, I mean, Carrie and Ann can, we're going to have a broader conversation at 10:45, but can we start trying to draft up a list of all the efforts we've taken in terms of PPE ordered, plexiglass ordered, those, physical changes we're making to buildings, this obviously is all happening much faster than any of us wanted, right? We willingly just decided to start the reopening conversation on Tuesday, and here we are off to the races. So, but I'm sorry, Carrie, you're on mute.
Yeah, we're already formulating the letter in our heads right now. So
yeah, I figured you were. Thank you very much. And so I think we can just expect that this is what the next couple of weeks are going to be about. So, okay. Anything regarding the actual, legislature?
One of the things that obviously we're going to be watching for is what, and I alluded to it just a few minutes ago, what are those safety precautions that they're going to take for reintroduction? That's going to be a key component of this. I think you all are aware that last week the Department of Revenue released its numbers on estimated where where revenue is at. I would remember one thing in that document, and Brennan and I have had some interactions with clients about this, because I'm going to lay this on the table. While that press release talked about April income tax numbers, what's not clear in that document is the numbers that they are talking about certifying sales tax are March numbers. So, in other words, when a permit holder, sales tax permit holder, remits, they have 30 days to remit from the end of the month. So if you think about it like that, you know, Walmart's or whatever the case may be can remit up until like the 30th of April, right? So when the Department of Revenue can certify, they're certifying the numbers that came in April that are March receipts. So we don't know yet. We do not have a full month of sales tax data yet to base this on, nor will we have it until the last day of May. And then it'll take them 10 days or so to certify those numbers. So when you look at those documents, those press releases that come out of the Department of Revenue, and they start talking about April numbers, yeah, that's April receipt. Those are April numbers from March that have come in over the course of April. So just one thing that I would remind everybody, because call me a naysayer, call me a pessimist, but we don't know yet how far that number is down. Hopefully everybody did what the cohorts do, and that is seem to be having a lot of Amazon packages showing up here. But at the same breath, we have to be cognizant that sales tax numbers are just going to be down significantly. So,
Yep.
that's what I got.
Okay. What I think in the future we should just change this to more good news with Joe and Brennan. Does that work? Is that what we can put on the agenda from now on? Thank you so much for being here. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess we can say that.
Yep.
So, awesome.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the contract with College of Law Children's Justice Clinic for guardian ad litem and juvenile justice appointments with Michelle Paxton, the Children's Justice Clinic Director. And we've got Dave Durbin as well. I think he's joining us. So, Michelle, thanks for being on with us.
Thanks so much. I see many friendly faces, although with different backgrounds than I normally see you commissioners in. So I really appreciate you letting me join you today and kind of just give you a bit of an update for those who have met me in the past and give you an introduction to this program for those who haven't been familiar with it. The Children's Justice Clinic, we started in 2017, and our contract with the county expires end of June. And so that's why we're back visiting with each of you today. But this clinic was created as a program to train third-year law students to develop the knowledge and skills necessary to be guardians ad litem in our juvenile court system. And we have a variety of goals that we're trying to achieve: increase knowledge, increase capacity, increase interest in pursuing work in child welfare and juvenile justice, as well as ensuring that children have high quality attorneys representing them in court and increasing the standards of practice in our community. And what's kind of lovely about this time that I'm joining you is that we are completing our data, our evaluation plan over this last 3 years and assessing that information. And I have good news in that we're achieving all of those goals in just 3 years. So in 3 years, I've been appointed on 67 cases. So you have third-year law students under my supervision and with the support of the Center on Children, Families, and the Law, working with law students to represent abused and neglected children in juvenile court, as well as children where the judge believes a guardian ad litem needs to be appointed in a juvenile justice case. And we, as part of it, we collect all sorts of data, but what I think might be real helpful for you to hear is what we hear when my evaluator goes and talks with the judges, so that they meet with the judges usually about June after the students graduate. And what they're reporting from our judges is that the guardian ad litem reports from these law students are the gold standard, that they're receiving critical information they need to make decisions for the best interests of children. And they're also seeing a shift in how attorneys represent children because of how our students are doing the work. We're seeing a lot more children attend court, making sure children's voices are being heard. So that's real positive. So I want to share that piece because that's where we see that real impact for the Children's Justice Clinic to continue long-term. Part of that is the contract with the county. But as I've mentioned to you in the past, we are entirely soft-funded otherwise. I have received already part of our continued grant from one of our donors has continued for another 3 years, and we'll be seeking another grant for another 3 years. But I want to let you know that the Dean of the College of Law and the University Foundation is committed to working towards a long-term endowment so that this program remains and will continue to offer high-quality legal representation to children in our community. So the proposal or the addendum that Mr. Durbin has provided is simply an amendment that includes the same terms that we've had in the past. But I wanted the chance to meet with all of you to see if anyone has questions about the program, the agreement, or anything like that that I could answer here today.
I worked in child welfare for too long to think you do anything but a really good job. So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Amundson.
Yeah, I just remember that when we passed it, or when we agreed to do this 3 years ago, it was a really positive thing that we were thinking would occur, and obviously that has carried through. So thank you for everything that you have done with that. It certainly is a very beneficial thing for these young kids.
Thank you,
And it's
Commissioner.
good for the students too.
Yes, and we're seeing data that shows, and again, it's early, we're seeing data that we're more students that are coming to the College of Law just to be in the program, more students graduating, interested in working in this area, which is critical for new graduates from the law school.
Right.
And quite frankly, the students that come out of this program are bulldogs in the best sense of the word. You know, as a former child welfare service provider, trust me, like, they're tenacious, and it's a good thing.
Thank you.
So,
well, I appreciate the time to visit with you. And if you ever have any questions or anything else that our clinic can do to help support the community, please let me know.
great. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, I'll just let you know that this amendment will be on the agenda on Tuesday for your approval.
That's great. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for the work you both did on this. Anything else? Very good. We'll move on to number 4. Thank you for being with us. Item number 4, Sarah Hoyle with coronavirus emergency supplemental funding.
Good morning. I just wanted to touch base with you. This grant is vastly different from any other grant that I've worked on. Primarily, once you're funded through this grant award, you're able to send in additional requests for this funding. And so I'm working on one. I've worked with all of the criminal justice entities and then with Dennis on this. And there's another request ready to go. Right now it's about 300,000. I just didn't know, I don't need a signature, but I wanted to make sure the board was aware another request was going in to the Crime Commission for this. So most of it is reimbursement to the county for items that departments have purchased as a response to the COVID pandemic. Some are additional requests to serve clients better as a result of the COVID pandemic, planning and so forth for that. So I don't know, are there any questions, concerns? Are you okay with me just submitting this in the future as receipts come in, or do you want me to come in front of the board each time?
It's always good to see you, Sarah.
It's nice seeing you all too. Better in person though.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I don't want. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We've actually got Commissioner Amundson, then I'm going to say Commissioner Yoakum, and then Shore. So boom, boom, boom. So,
Okay, actually, I think the thing about it is that we could let that up to your discretion a little bit if you want to come talk to us concerning a particular portion of it. I think that you're doing a fine job. And I guess that, although as what Commissioner Vest said, it's always nice to see you, Sarah. But I think, you know, that depending upon the time constraints and things like this, if it is for something that you would like for us to know, we could let that up to your discretion to come to the board.
Commissioner Yocum?
Yeah, I was just going to say I would hate having to come to the board, slow the process down. And I think we all know your work. And so, yes, I think we should be apprised of what's going on, but I don't think you need to come to us ahead of time.
Okay. You'll be signing the grant award when it comes, so you'll see the funding coming in. It's just sending it out. Okay, now, so with this request, there was discussion last week about this nurse at the entrance. Should we include that in this grant application? I know, Anne, you had mentioned other funding.
I think it was my understanding from Jen Holloway and Jim Davidsaver that we could potentially get reimbursement through NEMA for that up to 75% if we decided to do that. But I don't think we're quite there to make the decision.
Commissioner Short?
Back to your comment earlier, Sarah, I agree. Your time is very valuable. And so if it's just a quick email letting us know, I would be fine with that. But of course, your discretion when you need to come before us, you have, a good feeling for when that's necessary. I thought if we were using a public health nurse from the health department, would the funding even be, would we be reimbursing the health department? That's like reimbursing ourselves, but I guess that's what this money is to be intended to utilize, correct?
Yes, it can go. It's criminal justice related items. So it could go to that. I mean, these agencies too, most of them are submitting their requests through FEMA. So I've talked with the Crime Commission, and as of last week, nobody had received reimbursement in our state from FEMA for this. So going forward, if some of these agencies were reimbursed through FEMA, then we would work with the Crime Commission to reappropriate the funds.
So, Sarah, can you speak? I think we should try to pursue funding for this nurse's position for, at the very least, the courthouse. That makes sense to me. That that's fundamentally criminal justice related. But can we double check that with Pat Lopez and make sure that matches her understanding of it as well?
Yeah, I can call her this afternoon. And then just so you all kind of know what's in here, I'll send the spreadsheet when I submit it. I'll copy in Anne, does that work? Just so we have a record of what is being submitted. And then Dennis, obviously Dennis, you're looped into this anyways.
So Sarah, I wanted to make sure that if you do include the nurse in this, even if we find out that it's being able to be funded some other place, we can just not draw the money down, correct?
Right, we could do that, or we could ask that the money be reappropriated to some other expense that we have. Yes.
So I think we throw the dollars in there up front, and then we figure it out after that.
Yeah, there's no harm in it then. Yeah.
This will be a big expense, so we just want to make sure that it's also submitted to FEMA too. Whoever will do that. So, okay.
Commissioner Amundson, do you have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Anybody else with questions or comments for Sarah? Sarah, I was going to have you keep coming back before us each time just for yucks, but apparently the board has spoken, so I guess we won't do that.
Thank goodness. Thank you, the rest of the board.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'll send out the spreadsheet then, so you all have a copy of it, so you can at least see what's being submitted. So,
great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. See you soon again.
Yep. And we are actually just a little bit ahead of schedule here. Can we do the action item? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, I don't see any reason you couldn't take care of the action item.
Okay. The action item is the third amendment to county contract C19-0243 with Great Plains Appraisal Company for referee coordinator services. Who wants to start on this?
Well, yeah, Jen asked us to put it on. This is just a follow-up to the discussions Tuesday to get the contract completed for the referees. We had some items that we had previously talked about, and apparently they're all in place. Jen was probably expecting us to be a little bit later on this, so she's not tuned in, but we did send us some emails earlier correcting a typo on the mileage reimbursement rate, but that the correct exhibit is now in the contract, so everything is ready to go on it, my understanding.
Okay, sounds good. So if that's the case, then I would entertain a motion to approve this with the corrected mileage.
I will make that motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
I would just like to make one note. I think item number 2, is there a misspelling or a misuse of a word? Their agreement, should it be this agreement or THEIR?
I think it's supposed to be, is it therefore? No.
I was thinking it should have been this. Or the agreement, whatever, THE.
Yeah, no. I don't know. Dave, Carrie, can one of you look at that real quickly and then just see if the difference is substantive, find out if we have to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's substantive, but it's, I did see it.
Okay. Jumping down, Lancaster County 2020 priorities. Anybody have anything for today? I don't think I do at the moment.
No, I don't. Everything seems to be kind of focused on the pandemic.
I think COVID and the impending reopening crisis is pretty much going to suck up all the air out of the room for a little while. So, and then finally, try to get this done before we jump to 9:15. Discussion of board member meetings attended. The only one we have listed is DEC with myself and Commissioner Shore. Commissioner Shore, you want to give us a quick breakdown?
I will. We did do it via Zoom. It worked perfectly. LES and DEC hadn't been utilizing Zoom. They've been utilizing another platform, but our Jamie and team really pulled it together for us. A lot of the items were COVID related, not surprising. Some of the routine maintenance and some of the upcoming projects have been delayed. They are working on a reduced staffing model. So they are making sure that we have healthy people available to run the 8 different plants. So a lot of those projects have been delayed. So there's some fiscal implications there. Something that, let's see, what else do we have here? We talked about some insurance issues. We approved a new banking relationship with JP Morgan and Union Bank and Trust. And I think that's about it. We are going to begin discussions regarding the legal status of DEC. It was originally established as a—
Hey, Deb, I thought you and I specifically couldn't have advised the board on this one, and that was the fundamental issue.
Right. So we will be scheduling to have some DEC staff members and DEC legal counsel talking with us at an upcoming staff meeting about an issue that I can't advise you about at this time.
By the very nature of the issue, it's a conflict of interest if we advise you about it.
Yes.
Us being on both the DEC board and the county board of commissioners, and the fundamental issue is how to resolve said conflict of interest.
Yes.
So the solution is the very thing we cannot talk about. But,
right.
But Bill Austin will come forward and brief everybody.
Yeah, the board may recall we got an accountability and disclosure opinion about this issue.
Let's see what else. The International District Energy Conference this summer has been canceled, and we said goodbye and thank you to Sarah Peets. She had been serving on the DEC board as the LES representative. I think that's about it.
I was really excited about this conference too. The main topic of conversation was decarbonizing cities. So that was something I was looking forward to. Okay. That's it. Then I think we're close enough to 9:15. We will jump to cable television costs with David Young, our Chief Information Officer. David, thanks for being with us.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me. Very briefly, I know you guys follow the FCC extremely closely, as I do, and all of the things that they do. So I'm posting here in our chat window a brief article that will explain some of the things we're going to talk about today. Back in August of 2019, the FCC proposed changes to rules around how cities and counties franchise for cable service. The basics problem we're trying to solve today is that change will require that the city and county facilities that are receiving city franchise cable television service from Spectrum to pay for that. Prior, it was included in our franchise as a part of providing service within the community. So to be clear, we are part of the city of Lincoln is part of litigation against the FCC on this change, but that's going to take years to work through the system. I can provide you some updates on that in a separate phone call or discussion where we're at. But the challenge we have is I have a list of all of the facilities that are currently receiving free cable television service. It's 140 locations, and this is basic cable, by the way. And those 140 locations would now be required to pay a monthly subscription fee for that service. Inside of the city of Lincoln, so inside the city boundaries, Allo has offered to maintain under their cable franchise free service if we pay the cost to construct Allo inside the building. They're already building to the building, so any cabling required inside the building. The biggest complex we have is our 10th and M, whatever we call it, the City County Hall of Justice Criminal Center, those locations, 555 South 10th, that complex. In that area, we've got 24 county offices roughly, and then we have judges and we have juvenile court. So on the city side, they have decided to reduce their 110 connections to 6 connections. And those 6 connections are joint agency City County Health for the dentist office, where they have a lot of children come in. So they're gonna watch that. For our cable television, Channel 5, so their feed. And then at the police communication center for the 911 group, we'll be keeping 13 connections for those groups. They're going to pay an individual cost. We're going through the engineering right now to build an individual, basically cable from the basement of that complex to their office. The question came up as we were working through the list. On the county side, how does the board want to make that decision? So do they want to make it on an individual basis, or do they want to let the different agencies make that decision for themselves? A ballpark estimate, and this is ballpark, is it's a one-time cost of $1,000 to build cable from the basement or the point of entry where the fiber comes in to the office that's going to receive that cable. That is very much ballpark. Some will be much less. Jamie Wenz's facility is literally 25 feet up. I think his is going to be $200. But where we're building to the judge's office, it could be significantly more. We won't know that until we go through and do an individual cost estimate for each room that wants to receive cable. So I've reached out to Anne. She advised me that I could bring this to the board and you might be able to provide me some guidance. I will say we reduced 120 on the city side to 6. And on the county side, you're probably looking at, of the 24 agencies, probably 30 locations total.
Don't we want, I mean, long term, wouldn't you advise having the fiber optic infrastructure?
So the fiber optic infrastructure will be in every city and county owned facility within the city limits of Lincoln. What we're talking about is bringing cable television over that same fiber optic infrastructure to somebody's office or public space. And it's basic cable, it's the lower tier of cable, which is included in our franchise as being a part of providing service to the community. The FCC order has changed that and now said that you have to pay fair market value for that service.
I guess I don't necessarily understand the difference in terms of like what are they, we're talking about literal coaxial then when we're saying cable, or I mean what is the infrastructure we're talking about if it's not fiber optic, if it's something beyond fiber optic? So
when the fiber optics come into the building, they get terminated into what's called a switch, right? And basically it converts that fiber optic to what I would call RJ45 cable, right? Twisted pair, right?
Yep.
And so that twisted pair needs to be run within the facility to somebody's office or public space where we're going to have a cable box that will convert that signal to cable.
Got it. I just, I wasn't clear what we were adding. Yep.
Right. So what we're adding is literally a cable run from the basement of the 555 building or from 605 up to either the district court judge's office or to the public space outside of the district court. And we give you a full list, but the question is, Allo is offering this as part of their franchise to honor this, to continue honoring this, and we have to pay for the internal cabling cost.
Yeah, Commissioner Short.
I guess I'd like to see the list, and because it is a fiscal impact, I think the decision should lie with the board. The one that comes to mind is, our youth services center. I know that they do utilize it out there, and so I think the decision is ours, and I'd like to see the list.
Okay.
I think I concur, Commissioner Amundson.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Deb said. I think that what we need to do is to see the list, and then if we could also get a cost estimate. I know you said $1,000, but if you could be a little bit more clear on that, that would be great. And then I would also be interested in knowing what your suggestions would be. I mean, the decision actually does lie with the board, but I would like to see what your professional decisions. I don't know anything about this stuff, really, but I would like to have your suggestions as to what you think, what you think would be beneficial for the county.
So the reason we have reduced on the city side is the same advice I'm going to give to the county board.
Okay.
Most or all of this content can be streamed over the internet.
Okay.
And we have internet connections in almost every office. There are some very specific cases, youth services center, right? City County Health in the dentist area. Aging has a couple of facilities that they have exercise for our seniors. Those are legitimate areas that we should probably have a cable box, right? Just about every other location, we should just stream the content over the internet. So that would be my advice to you. There is a cost. There is a cost to do the engineering estimate. So we basically pay by the hour to have our contractor come in and measure it all out. It's not that much. So my advice would be, once I give the list to the board, maybe the board could say, do an estimate on these 3 or 4 locations.
Okay.
Couldn't we just, I guess it would preclude news. We wouldn't get news this way, but couldn't we just buy half a dozen Roku boxes and apply, the no adult content, filter on them? I mean, with a password, like I've done it for my younger cousins. It doesn't seem that hard.
It's not. And that's the reason we, on the city side, we've reduced so many, right? Because most of this content is available, and it's all available on the device that we're all sitting here talking to today. Right.
Right.
So,
David, what about our adult detention facility? I mean, they've got screens in every pod. I don't know how.
That's going to be the one where we meet with Brad and have that discussion.
Okay.
So we're trying to get some insight into what's going on there. I don't know that the adult detention center does not pay for service now. So that's the question. The records on both the city and the county side were a little all over the place because it was service that was being provided at no cost. And so now we're looking at identifying where each facility is, who's paying the bill, if they're keeping it, and if they're not keeping it, what do we need to do to change the way they receive service?
Yeah. The jail is the one place where I would tell you that I think it's really genuinely crucial to have.
Right. I agree.
And also because it's a security risk if we give those, if we give the population internet access. So.
Right. So my takeaway and action item is to provide the board a list of all county locations that are currently receiving cable. And then the board will provide me with some guidance about which facilities they want estimates. I will probably go ahead and move forward getting an estimate on youth services because I think we'll all agree that that's a place where they need that. And then I think that the district court, that's going to be the question, right? The individual judges' offices.
Right.
How do we want to work through with them? And if you guys would like, I can work with Ann to kind of coordinate this list and distribute it to the board.
And can you just to go back, what was the reason that they needed in each one of their judges' chambers?
I'm not arguing that there's a reason. I think it's a past practice.
Okay.
And so what we would need to do is if we're going to identify certain judges' offices where we're going to change how they're receiving content delivery, educate them on that technology. Not a big deal. We're happy to.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I would personally like to say that my next meeting, I want to go to Krista's location and have it because she looks like she's having the meeting in the right place.
I may never come back indoors.
That does look a lot better than the rest of us, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I would imagine regarding this cable service that a lot of the different departments, their needs have changed as they've used more internet and they may or may not be using that at all. It's probably that maybe the situation with the judges. At one point, they thought they would want to get news or whatever that way, and maybe they're not anymore. So I think we do need to have that conversation. But did you give us a timeline or what kind of a date we're looking at?
Fairly quickly, as of July 1, Spectrum has said that they will start charging fees and expecting to collect those. And we want to make this transition pretty smooth. So we had started this project off in March and we're going through, and that's why we have all the information we have right now. But in April, we all know things changed. And so we pivoted from requesting service for government facilities to allowing ALLO to continue to build out residential requests. That now has calmed down a little bit. And so we can dive back into this project. So I'll provide a list to Ann to circulate. And then we can have further discussions individually with different groups to see if they feel like they do need or don't want the service. And then we'll get estimates on those after the board approves those locations.
Yep. Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you for the time today. I appreciate it.
Very good. All right, next up, department budget hearings with Dennis Meyer. First up, we've got Human Services and General Systems with Sarah.
All right, so we'll take Sarah on first. She's got 3 different budgets that we'll talk about, and Sarah, I'll probably just start with GA and then do GA operating and then do your Human Services one third. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go ahead and talk GA first. And Sarah, let's start with additional appropriations for the GA fund. Earlier in the year, we transferred $300,000 over to that because we were hopeful that costs would be lower this year. And it didn't end up that way. But to end up the fiscal year, we should be good, correct?
Correct. And I don't think that we'll have a cost savings in there, because when I checked the other day, we were at 87% of that budget. So
Okay. So Sarah, is COVID-19 affecting your GA budget?
not this one, no.
Okay. Okay, so let's hop into the current year numbers, and when you take a look at these, you will see that the budget of expenditure set up is just a little less than 1.3 million. What will jump out to you is that the change in the budget is a decrease of almost 44%. We then also look at the revenue side, and the revenue side is at about 202,000, 203,000, with also a decrease close to 20%. So overall in this GA budget, you know, we have set up right now a net decrease from the previous year of over $600,000. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you and kind of let you talk about what's driving this GA and what you're thinking for this next budget year.
So as you know, Medicaid expansion is set to occur on October 1st. So with that, we won't see a.
Are we taking odds on that?
No, it's happening. And we've planned the budget around it happening. It's still on. It's still set for that date as of today. So with that being said, GA operates in that starting October 1st, we hope that a lot of these services will be covered through the state. However, we'll still receive invoices, as you know, up to, gosh, we still get them a year after service, sometimes if it's a hospitalization. So that's why you see some expenses, and it's not exactly half, is because we know that, or it's not exactly a savings of those months that Medicaid should be covering. So we know that invoices will continue to come in. In addition, same thing with revenue. Once an individual is receiving Medicaid benefits, then we work with a provider to bill Medicaid and get reimbursed that way. So this process, I'm planning on probably occurring for the next 2 years, not at this rate. You'll see an additional cost savings next year, but we're still going to see those invoices and then that revenue come in. Now, part of this is the individual that we assigned to the accounting specialist over here was the former billing person at General Assistance. So that individual will be able to continue to process these claims.
So I think you'd made a note in some of your budget stuff that I've seen as far as rent and cremations.
Right.
So those types of expenditures will still be happening from here on out.
Cremations for sure will still be obligated to cover those expenses. And then, you know, I've been watching what's coming out as far as the rules and regulations around Medicaid expansion in our state. And as of now, there are a couple things that may not be covered, but it changes. So yeah, we've talked about potentially rent could be one of them, although I'm not 100% sure on that. So we won't know until all of the rules and regs are finalized with DHHS.
Okay.
Which will probably be September 30th.
Yes. Or later.
Or later.
But it's going to happen.
Okay, so County Board, questions on any of just the GA stuff for Sarah? I mean, right now, like she said, we're shooting for 10-1 and the budget is set up for that process. If there are no questions, I'm going to jump into the GA operating, which is really just, it's really just the operating, the salaries and benefits, the operating expenses to really do the work for the general assistance itself. So here again, what you will see is in the budget year, you will see that the budget has been decreased down to 145,000, and that decreases almost 68%. So, Sarah, talk to us about what's happening with this one.
So this again coincides with Medicaid expansion. During this COVID pandemic, we also started the process of notifying staff of their last days with general assistance. One staff, her last day will be tomorrow. And then we have staff, then I've transitioned them out just at different times to see kind of what the cases and to ensure that we have coverage, and for about a month or two after Medicaid expansion is set to occur, just to try to make sure we have everything covered as far as services needed and so forth. So that's the cost savings you see in there. You've gone from paying for 5 staff over there to this particular budget right here has 3 staff in it.
Sarah, were those 2 employees able to find other positions within county government?
One was not, and one is now over here as the accounting specialist.
Okay, that's what you referred to earlier.
Yeah. And then I worked with Pat Lopez and Karen Peterson on relinquishing some of the office space too, to cut down on rent over there. So that's reflected in this budget. And then obviously that will go away too at the health department, that office space.
So Sarah, then moving Tina over to your place, then having her set up over there, you don't see any problem with her taking care of what's happening on the GA side?
So that's right. So she'll be taking care of the billing and then the reimbursements over here. And then our pre-adjudication specialist, he'll be helping with the cremations, to work with the families for the cremations.
Okay. Sarah, I forgot to ask up front on the GA operating, but you're good on that budget, correct, to finish out this fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, and Sarah, one of the things that I've been talking to all the departments about is our new HR payroll system that's coming. And here with GA, it's the GA operating is probably going to be a little bit different, because from here on out, I just want to make sure all the department heads know, really starting in June and for these next, 4 or 5 months, different modules are going to be brought in, and training is going to be occurring for every employee, really, as we kind of go through here. So you'll have to just need to understand that there will be training almost on a monthly basis as we hit different modules. With this GA operating, we'll have to probably, with this couple employees over there, we'll have to probably just kind of try to limp along and kind of get them through, since we won't be fully up until October 1. And some of those employees are kind of, in that mix on how long they're going to be here.
Okay. I'll work with you and Kevin on that then.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that we get them set up as good as we can as we just try to go through this transition.
Okay.
Questions for Sarah on the GA operating? So far, Sarah's come in with 2 budgets, both very well under the previous year's budget. So
Well, and it's great to know that your staffs are merging now, and that some of your human services people are taking on those additional GA components. So great work.
Thanks. Yeah, it has not been the ideal time for this, but we're making it work. So.
Good for you.
Okay, let's hop into Sarah's human services budget. And Sarah, on human services, you're good for this for closing out this fiscal year also, right?
Yeah, we'll probably have some remaining.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you say probably, I really need that to be, yeah, we will. Whether it's $1 or whatever, but I need at least $1 there.
Oh, okay, yes, we will $1.
Okay, so total budget for the human services is at a little over $901,000, and that is a 13.5% increase. When you look at our revenues, it's a little over $501,000, which is a little over a 5% increase. Just to remind everybody, with this budget, her human services budget is a 50-50 split with the city, but over the last few years, you can't just look at it 50-50 because there's a few other things in there. And so when we look at it, you gotta think about the other revenues that we've got coming in, as far as grant money and stuff like that. So we do a 50-50 split, but it doesn't just come out real clean right here. So Sarah, what's driving this budget here for you?
The increase has been the addition to IS costs. Obviously, I know those went up for everybody. And then we also, the contract that we have with the university to collect our juvenile justice data and then run analysis on it quarterly for us. Two things happened with that they've asked for an additional $50,000. That additional $50,000 is really 25 from you, because I also asked the mayor for 25 too. But that increase that you see in the budget is for additional analysis of SRO data and SROs as it relates to juveniles entering the juvenile justice system. And then also for the university to start collecting and analyzing funding for grants that are awarded through city and county dollars. So for JBC, JJPF, and the Keno grants.
So Sarah, is Qualtrics still in your budget?
No.
So you no longer use Qualtrics then?
No, when we entered this agreement with Dr. Weiner, we switched from us running that analysis to him, just because there were questions. I know that the legislature has had questions on different things, and it just coming from the university added more credibility, I think, to it than us running our own data on this. So
okay.
And then Qualtrics, primarily at the end, we were using to push out surveys to our families that we'll be able to still do that, just in another format.
Okay. So Sarah, as far as the grant money that we're moving over to cover some of your salaries and benefits, do we have new grants, or are these really kind of grants that the same type of grants that we've been working with over the last few years?
It's the same type of grants. So we have 2 full-time staff that are covered 100% through grant funding.
Okay. Is COVID-19 driving anything in this budget for human services?
We've had very few COVID-19 related expenses with our budget, minor things, but no, nothing driving this.
Okay. I've talked with, the payroll system is going to be the same thing with your human services employees. So like I said, once we kind of get the trainings and stuff up there, we'll just need to make sure you kind of, allow all of your employees to be able to go through that process.
Yeah, and I think that the two that are grant funded are working with Kevin already, just making sure that the system is able to track everything we need for grant reimbursements.
Okay. Okay, County Board, questions for Sarah?
None on this one.
I don't have any.
Okay. I think other than that, then, Sarah, I think we're good. We've talked your JBC stuff before. We've talked, when I talk about budgets where we put some of your other money, we might pull you in, but I think we've got the funding set up for you this year. So, unless you think there's anything else we need to talk about on any of your other funding.
I think that the budget hearing with the mayor went good. I know that the budget's not final, but so far I think everything that we had requested is in there. So.
Okay. All right, Sarah, I appreciate you hopping on today.
Alrighty, thanks. See y'all later.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye. Bye.
So, Teresa, I can't see the screen, so are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I have Judge Heidemann with me as well.
All righty. Good morning. So, I've pulled up. Okay, Teresa, let's first start current year budget, wrapping up this fiscal year. At this point in time, are you good to finish out this fiscal year?
Yeah, our budget's in really good shape. We're anticipating probably returning at least 100,000 back in the budget, maybe 125.
So, Teresa, what's driving that? Is it really just the attorney costs?
Yes, it's the attorney costs. We had case number filings that were down lower than what we anticipated this year, and that clearly reflected in our attorney fees.
Okay.
Then also, since the pandemic, we've had to move a good number of those hearings out. So I think this last quarter, the reimbursements are going to be down and reflecting on those continuation of hearings and things like that, as well as in relation to the pandemic.
Okay, so let's jump into current year stuff, or for next year's budget. So juvenile court's request is just a little less than $2.2 million, which is about a 4.5% increase. Teresa, talk to me or talk to us about what's really driving your request for next year.
The bulk of it is attorney fees. We're anticipating once we get back up to speed with hearings that those attorney fees are going to jump back up again. So we put extra money in for our attorney fees in at least the 3A category, the abuse neglect cases. That is pretty much the driver of our budget.
Okay. Yeah, because I think when I was looking at it, I think that abuse and neglect jumped by about $101,000.
Yep.
So in your guys' mind, it's really just to kind of catch us back up to what we're not doing now.
That's exactly it. Yes.
And Dennis, the other thing that is going on right now in child welfare is with schools closing physically. There's been over a 30% reduction in hotline calls because of the mandatory reporting from public school systems or from the school systems. And if they come back into session, the hotline calls will jump back up. We also know at the same time from law enforcement that mental health calls are up and domestic violence calls are up. So we kind of got a pot stewing, we think, with child welfare, that there may be a bump in filings when things start to ease back up and go back to somewhat of normalcy.
Okay. Okay. So Teresa, on your IS costs, what kind of effect did you see on those?
It went up about, oh gosh, what was it? About $9,000, but we lost the VoIP. So overall, it's like a 3,500 increase.
Okay. Okay. So we've kind of talked about, you know, with the COVID-19, what's kind of happening. Is there anything else that the COVID-19's driving your budget with, other than what you've mentioned already?
No, most of the additional supplies and things we've been able to cover in this budget since we have extra. Yep. So I think we're going to be just fine with what we have right now.
Okay. Talk to us about your technology request. Your request is for a little over $1,800. What are you asking for there, Teresa?
I just have one desktop computer and one laptop computer. Both of those are replacing existing ones that are old.
Okay. And then on future year stuff, you've got and we've talked about this at least last year. I can't remember if it's been longer than that. Renovation of your of 3 courtrooms. Talk to us about that a little bit.
I'll punt this over to Judge Heidemann.
You know, what I will call the 3 original courtrooms 41, 42, and 43 haven't had any updates, so to speak, physical updates, so to speak, since the original, building reconfiguration and remodeling. We know if we get to a point that, we've talked to Public Building Commission that with the transport of juveniles and adults, our ingress and egress into those courtrooms isn't in line with what the standards are from the Supreme Court as far as having separate ingresses and egresses. So big picture, obviously that'd be down the line sometimes. I think that would be a big picture item to get those in line. Smaller picture item, I think, is just updating some of the wear and tear that's occurred on like council table and the bench over the years since that remodel, which would be a smaller dollar amount.
So Judge and Teresa, on what I've seen, you're kind of projecting out for like fiscal year 23. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Okay. Last thing that I just want to mention, Teresa, and you probably heard me tell Sarah, is just kind of about our new HR payroll system. We're getting to the point where modules are getting ready to be put out there to start being used. And as we go through these different modules, as we move up to that October 1 date of being live with everything over these next 4 to 5 months, there will probably be training on a different module almost about every month that we'll need you and your employees to kind of go through that, so we can so that when we hit October 1, we're ready to go.
Okay. Not a problem.
All right, County Board, any other questions for Judge Heidemann or Teresa?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, if not, thanks you two for hopping on with us and talking to us about your budget request.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim.
Good morning.
It's go time now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've pulled up Kim's budget, and when I do just one total graph here with Kim's budget, it makes things look just so easy. It's when we start talking about every program that she's kind of got within there. So Kim, let's first hit up current year budget. You had recently sent me an email that closing out this current fiscal year, you feel like you're good to finish that out.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. Looking, especially with the decreased activity around here, but revenues aren't going to be reaching what we thought they would because of the decreased activity. But in terms of expenses, I believe we'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. So for Kim's budget request for next year, it's a little over about $3.6 million. So about 5.75% increase. Revenues are at about a little over 1.7, which is about a 2.73% increase. So let's kind of talk budget stuff here, Kim. And I'll kind of turn it over to you and kind of let you talk if you want to talk about programs or however you want to talk about it, what's driving your budget.
Okay. Well, a couple of things are driving the budget. We've had, of course, the increase in IS. Those costs have increased this year. I've also added some personnel for grants that you'll kind of see reflected in one of the business units. Those, however, are reimbursed 100% for the reentry enhancement grant. Those salaries and benefits are reimbursed at 100%. Also in that reentry business unit, we have 50% personnel costs to continue to pay until the end of September. And then after September 1, those costs go up to 100% because the grant is officially closed. However, I do have a no cost extension for a year to cover the costs of housing for that project so that we can continue to collect some data. Now, I do have that third reentry grant application out. And if that is awarded, then those personnel costs would go back down by 50%. So I will know for sure about that probably mid-September. I'm pretty confident. I shouldn't say that out loud because I'm going to jinx myself, but this reentry grant project has gone very well. I think BJA has been pretty pleased with our progress and the efforts that we're making. So I would be surprised if it's not refunded for an additional 3 years, but again, I won't know that until September.
Hey, Kim, I got a question for you on that.
Okay.
So would you have additional expenditures also if that is awarded?
No, any additional expenditures would go back into the grant budget. So it wouldn't come out of the general fund. It would be, those expenses would be put into that grant, the 9717 budget.
Okay, so basically what that would do is just give us some federal money to offset those salaries and benefits.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the main drivers of the increases of costs. Of course, my personnel costs will go up every year, but those are kind of the main big dollar items in my budget. We also had, what Mandy does a really good job with our budget every year. She takes expenses from the previous years and kind of predicts what we'll be spending the next year. We had some increases this year that we decided to leave at a flat rate and try to do some internal adjustments to keep those costs down, specifically drug testing and drug testing confirmation costs. So I'm working closely with Sadie in our drug testing area to see if we can make some adjustments in how we're monitoring alcohol use and those kinds of things. Maybe reducing the number of confirmations that we have to send in. So we're trying to keep most of our expenses pretty flat this year.
Hey, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about some of the revenues. I've noticed, and I don't know if it's because of the COVID, on some of the revenues decreasing a little bit. you
Yes,
know,
yeah,
is that just,
substantially.
I mean, is that based off of COVID?
It is absolutely based off of COVID. Most of those reductions in revenues are coming from stop dollars. We use stop administration reimbursements are every kind of reimbursement we use the stop funds for is dependent upon the number of tickets that are written. And so it's kind of a guesstimate every year of how many people are going to be participating in the stop program. And because of the COVID and because I know what's going on with writing tickets right now, that number is probably going to be, especially this fourth quarter, that number is going to be substantially lower. That's one of the reasons revenues will be down this year. But next year, I think it'll probably also be substantially lower than it was. We use those stop funds to reimburse for salaries and benefits for the folks who put effort into administering the stop program. We get additional kind of administrative fee for running the program. And then we use some of those stop funds to reduce the costs of the drug testing 24/7 program. And so we're just anticipating that those numbers are going to be a bit lower again this year.
Okay. So
the other thing that's probably driving some of the
reduction
in revenues is our diversion services, our general diversion, the kind of the misdemeanor program that we have. They're no longer charging infractions, which was a huge population that we had. A lot of kids usually get caught with a little bit of marijuana and they get in trouble. Well, that's not happening anymore. And so our diversion services numbers have gone down in that area, have gone down drastically. And those are the diversion participants who generally pay their fees and take care of business. And so because those numbers are down, the revenues in that area are down, but we are taking advantage of that and reallocating that staff person to other areas of the agency. So.
Okay. Kim, you also mentioned you're waiting on the one
Dennis,
grant.
can I jump in with a question?
Yeah. Yep.
Kim, is that because of like the SAMI program and some of the initiatives that are being run out of Sarah's office that those juvenile justice infractions are down?
I guess it could be, but generally speaking, we don't take anyone below the age of 18. So it's mostly coming from the county attorney and the city. Mostly the county attorney's office not filing those.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's in the big picture scheme of things, it's probably an okay thing to have happening in our criminal justice system for that change to be taking place.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not upset by that. I'm just saying that it is affecting what's happening here. But we were making adjustments because of that. So.
Okay. I was trying to draw a correlation. I guess it's not there.
Okay, so Kim, on the federal grants, you had mentioned the one you're waiting on. Do you just have one of them that you're waiting on?
We actually have a second one, a really, really big SAMHSA grant. It's a $4 million SAMHSA grant we're waiting on. I don't hold my breath on SAMHSA grants because they're very difficult to get. And so that one, that's a grant that we have been talking about. We were going to use the funding to start working on that crisis kind of respite intervention between jail and a crisis center. We don't have that in this jurisdiction, and we've been talking about it for 25 years and we've done nothing about it. So I think this was an effort to start working it on that. So that's a big grant. There's no matching funds for that. So if we get that grant, it'll be about $1 million a year for 4 years.
Oh.
Okay.
Other grants that are out there that I don't do a whole lot with, the Veterans Diversion Enhancement Grant that is running through this office. Mandy is doing a fantastic job of kind of monitoring their expenses and helping them with that. I kind of take care of the administrative stuff for them. But for the most part, the Veterans Court is kind of managing those dollars. The only match that's required for that is like a 25% match. And so they're using salary benefits and rent for the match from that grant. And then we do have that drug court enhancement grant. We've been kind of slow to spend some of those dollars. We're going to try to rev that up this year and take care of some of that. So we need to, there's some a lot of that grant has a lot of education dollars in it. And right now, traveling for education is not happening. So we may have to have a no cost extension for that one.
Okay, Kim, you'd mentioned the 2 new employees that would be paid with federal dollars.
Yes.
Is that with federal dollars for one of those grant that we will not hear about until September, or is that one that you've already been awarded?
That one has been awarded. It is 9721. It's the Reentry Enhancement Project. It is one of those grants, much like the first reentry grant. We had to take the very first year of that grant and do planning with the Department, the Bureau of Justice Assistance and their TA provider. So we are still in the course of our planning. They were also delayed in kind of getting anything started with planning for about 3 to 4 months. And so we're a little bit behind the curve on that grant as well in terms of getting the funding released. But once that planning guide is approved, then that funding will be released and we'll start moving forward. But we anticipate that happening this summer, which is why we've added those positions in for this next fiscal year.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that in my mind that those two employees are needed because the award has already been awarded.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Kim,
there will actually be a 3rd position for that grant that won't be mine. It'll actually be in Brad's budget. But I didn't want to stress Brad out right now. So
okay.
We'll deal with that mid-year.
Okay. 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 So Kim, is COVID-19, other than some of the stuff we talked about on the revenues, is it driving any of your other costs?
We had some equipment costs that we've asked for some reimbursement for, so that staff would have computers and iPads so that they could work from home or do Zoom meetings with their participants. So there's been a few expenses related to that. We are constantly needing PPE for drug testing. We did have a drug testing breathalyzer station built. They're calling it the COVID confessional, I think. You should stop in and look at it. It's pretty handy. But it looks like a ticket booth with a big, kind of a circle, and they stick the PBT through it. But anyway, so yeah, we've had a few expenses related to that. We're also waiting on some plexiglass barriers for staff and for the front desk. So, but other than that, no major expenses. I did some of the grant funding for the Crime Commission Sarah was talking about. Part of it has to do with us being able to improve our kind of supervision with our clients. But the other piece of it has to do with ordering that. You all have ordered that thermal temperature detecting system for the sheriff, for the courthouse, and we're looking at something very similar for our drug testing area. If anything is going to, if the virus is going to enter our building anywhere, it's going to be downstairs. And so I think for long term, just for it would be fantastic to have something like that downstairs. So part of those dollars that were submitted to the Crime Commission are to support installing that machine downstairs as well, or that technology, I guess, downstairs as well.
Are you doing any other kinds of temperature checks now?
Well, we don't have a lot of people in and out of our office.
Okay.
But no, the thermal the thermometers we have require that you be 6 inches away from the individual to take their temperatures, which is, I guess, fine if everybody's masked, but it's probably not ideal. We do require everyone that comes through our door to put a mask on, and they cannot come back into our office space unless both the staff and the client have a mask on. And we are sanitizing our space and all of our exterior exits about 3 to 4 times a day. So.
Okay. So Kim, on those dollars that you're trying to run through Crime Commission with Sarah, you talked about that temperature. Is it for cost? Are the other ones for costs that you haven't spent yet?
That's correct. Right. It would just be it would be providing enhancements to our current supervision so that we have better handle on what's going on with our clients. We actually would like to buy some disposable cell phones so that we don't, it's difficult to communicate with some of our folks who don't have technology available to them. And so we would like to do that. And then we would like to be able to kind of do a little more remote breathalyzer in the community and do some drug testing in the community rather than having those folks come through our doors.
Okay, so Kim, if the Crime Commission approves that, then we'll need to bump your budget up, revenues and expenditures, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I can send, if you would like me to, Dennis, I can send you what I sent over to Sarah.
Well, Sarah's been trying to keep me up to date on everything. So I knew you had some numbers in there. I just wanted to make sure that I had it in my mind that if you do get it, that we do need to do something with your expenditures and your revenues, and that they weren't already somewhat built in there because you're going to spend it anyway.
Yeah, no, they're not built in there because if I don't get those, there's a couple of, I would like to upgrade some of our technology in our group rooms as well. I mean, I think long-term, if you look at the big picture, long-term, some of the things that we could do to improve technology options over here would definitely make it less likely in the future that any of our participants had to miss any kind of programming or supervision. As long as we have the technology to make that happen, if they're homesick, we can still have contact with them. So we're asking for some upgrades for some of our conference room spaces as well.
Okay. Kim, last thing for me, you've heard me talk about the new HR payroll system. So I just want to make sure all the department heads kind of hear that over these next 4 to 5 months, there will be training that, is almost required, for you as well as your employees, so that when we get to October 1, we're ready to go with every module that we're going to have out there.
Sounds good. People are interested and wondering, so I don't think I'll have any trouble getting them trained.
Okay. Okay, County Board, any other questions for Kim?
Nope.
All right, Kim, I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Or weekend, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, weekend.
Right. Okay. That puts us at our break time. Let's go ahead and break until 10:30 and come back then for additional appropriations.
Dan, how's life treating you?
Pretty good. How about you?
It's going all right.
I'm really impressed. The heat is running in my office today. It didn't run all winter, and now it is. So I don't know. I must be living wrong or something.
Hey, yeah, I mean, that's the way it usually works.
So. I know Kevin said he's been busy all week with payroll meetings, so.
Yeah, he kind of told me that too when I seen him on Tuesday.
At least that's what he's telling us. So it's,
yeah, I mean, with Kevin, you never know.
It's
Hey, I caught the comment about the heat coming in your office, just so you know. I know you know I'm on this, so I am texting the appropriate people as we speak.
well,
I'll
I
find
just,
out.
no, it's been cold all the time, and
I know, Dan.
I wish this was in December, but.
And I told Karen, let's turn the heat up on Nolte a little bit.
Right, exactly.
Let's put a little pressure on it.
Either that or maybe I need to take my temp, I guess.
Oh.
Dan, I don't know if you noticed, I joined the meeting. I looked at it. It was 9:02.
I had the time down. I think I had it down at 9:04.
Okay, close enough. Close enough. I just didn't know if you saw me zoom in.
Well, let me.
So.
I do the minutes.
No. I trust you. I was just going off my cell phone, so I'm sure yours is great.
That's off the top of my head. I've got down at 9:03.
Let's settle on that.
Okay, but I think my clock is different, maybe than what.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yep.
Okay. Good enough for government.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
Krista, is it too windy out there now or what?
I was low on power and it seemed like my internet was cutting out. Those are the two things that would drive me indoors. It is windy out now, though.
Okay, it's 10:30. So we are back with additional appropriations.
Okay, so there was an attachment today to the agenda. I'm going to share that because this is really us needing to clean up the current year budget. And like we talked a while back when Pam was here, on June 9th, we will do a public hearing to amend her budget down there for that about $3.4 million. So I've already sent that to the publication's been sent to the Journal and all of that. So that will take place on June 9th. I plan to come next Tuesday with the resolution to try to clean up the general fund numbers. And what you see here is everything. The ones that have the resolution is the one that we adopted a little while earlier because we were having issues with bigger numbers that we needed to take place at that point in time to keep moving. So the resolution on Tuesday will be for a $961,245. The one thing that you'll notice this year is it's over my $2 million that I set aside for contingencies. This will be the first year that we've ever exceeded that number.
Question.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the election commissioner, are any of those funds reimbursable, or are they not related to COVID?
No, those, well, they're reimbursable, but they're reimbursable from LPS because the majority of that was because of that special election for the LPS bond.
Okay.
So I think if I remember right, we got 330 or 340 of it back in revenue from them.
Okay. Okay.
And
so this doesn't have anything to do with the most recent election and the additional supplies he purchased.
No, but that one's really kind of based off of LPS drove that one the most.
Okay.
So you know, so these will be the numbers that I'll be bringing forward, and then we'll kind of, you know, one of the big things we'll do is we'll wait to see where our fund balance and our general fund ends up.
Yeah.
So so anyway, you know, the one number that increased a little bit from mid-year is the corrections went from about 350 to about 550, and they've been having some bigger numbers in some of their hospitalization and medical numbers, and of course they're still dealing with overtime and on calls out there. So we will I'll bring this on Tuesday, and then we'll also talk, you know, a little bit about this because Brad's budget hearing is next Tuesday after the regular meeting.
Okay.
But I kind of wanted just to kind of give you a heads up that I will have a resolution on next Tuesday's agenda.
Okay.
And then next week, you guys must have, maybe there's a NACO meeting on Thursday because it looks like we've only got budget hearings on Tuesday.
Well, we're scheduled to be in Kearney at the County Board Workshop, but of course that's canceled. So.
Okay. Well, I guess the good news is we're only doing budget hearings on Tuesday.
Dennis?
Yes.
We still have to finish up Pam's. Can she be put in on one of those days?
Yeah, I talked to her last week, and we could probably, because I don't have anything else on for that Thursday, I could probably have her come during that staff. Because is there going to be a staff meeting now?
Well, I guess that's a Carrie question.
Well, there's absolutely nothing scheduled at this point. We can always do our legislative update, and we could add Pam. So there's a couple items.
So we were going to do that one by Zoom, probably.
So you're going to decide that today, I think.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you guys want to do something, I had told Pam when I talked to her last week that it was going to probably be a couple weeks out. So next Thursday, if you guys are willing to do it, I could put her on there.
Okay.
What's the plan for it, Dennis?
Okay.
I think there's going to be enough things that come up between now and then that we're going to want that Thursday meeting.
Actually, you know, even with opening on June 15th, I think there'll be plenty of things to talk about.
Yeah, I think we're going to be pretty busy.
Okay, so that's what we'll plan for Thursday then. So other than that, that's kind of really what I wanted to throw out to you.
Are we seeing, ever since the reduced cost or the reduced numbers of the jail, are we seeing any reduction in jail costs? Doesn't sound like it.
No, and you know, and I think some of that will be a lot of our discussion on Tuesday when we're doing budget hearings with Brad.
Okay.
But you know, I think there's some other things that are happening as far as medical and stuff like that have happened that that hasn't allowed for any type of reduction.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I will stop my share and.
Yep. Okay, so let's just go ahead and move into COVID-19 update and response then. If Dennis, you don't have anything else?
I do not. I do not.
Okay. Then let's go ahead. Let's start off with in-person county board meetings because there's some of the people that are going to be showing up for the June 15th conversation aren't quite on yet. I recommend we do our first in-person meeting on June 16th. Since June 15th is the date we're supposed to be open.
Yeah, I don't think we go before that.
So come back on that Tuesday, June 16th. And then, I don't know what we want to do about Thursdays. If we want to just move Thursdays back to normal and plan that the 16th and the 18th are the days we come back for, or if we want to still keep Thursdays open to Zoom. What do you all think?
I think that if the funds are tied to the fact that we have to be open and operating with offices for people to come in and talk, I think we need to do that in person.
I hate it because it kind of feels like there's a gun to our head, but yeah, I kind of agree.
Okay.
So
going back on the 16th.
16th back in person, and I guess back in person ongoing from that moment then.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we want to risk the loss of the funds.
I'm with you. I agree. I think there's too much at stake there.
But it's good to know we can do meetings this way, should there be like a weather issue or something like that, because
Absolutely.
I know we have canceled before, in blizzard conditions. So good to know.
Okay, well, that was very easy. Let's go ahead and start talking about, we've got Karen with us. Karen, thank you for joining us, and sorry I wasn't able to get to you last night. So this is all kind of happening fast for everybody. Karen, how much overtime and what do you need to get things open by June 15th?
So far we're not putting in overtime. I'm at an advantage in that I've got basically 2 shifts of staff. I've got day staff, which typically does not get involved in any janitorial duties, and the night shift, that's all they do. So I think going forward, one of the things that I have ordered and just arrived today was a sprayer, for lack of a better term, that can spray disinfectant in larger areas a little bit more quickly, so we can get in and out. We're going to have to coordinate, and I think that I'll back up. I think that it is reasonable to assume that my daytime maintenance staff is also going to be involved in doing that during the day. We're going to have to coordinate. I need about an hour in between meetings to make certain that if we put a disinfectant application down, that people aren't in the room, not breathing the mist certainly, but also allowing the product to dry. I think that's reasonable to assume that we would be doing that. Like I say, the machine came in, the PPE is shortly to follow, I'm hoping, but I'll work on those logistics. So I think that's reasonable. Now, what I don't have available is to certainly do in individual office spaces and whatnot. Those do get done at night. I assume that we are just talking about public areas as we can reconvene in the Bill Luxford, in the chambers. We've got some larger conference areas and we have access to the calendars, but we may, I'm kind of thinking out loud, we may be putting in those calendars, giving us a block of time, just blocking it off. Property management has it. It's not because I'm running a meeting, it's because I'm trying to keep it clean. So that's kind of my plan going forward. I reported at the last Public Building Commission meeting that I am keeping track of the extra expenses for related to COVID-19. I am participating in Sarah Hoyle's grant. Far better at it than I am, so just let her do that. So for the time being, Sean, I don't need anything from the county board. How about that?
Okay. We're back ordered on the plexiglass, right?
Well, Ann Ames could probably speak to that. I have not spoken directly with Bob Wall. I'm getting it second and third party, but yeah, plexiglass is becoming very difficult to get.
When do we expect to be able to get it?
Bob told me that the bid closed on Tuesday. He awarded it to the lowest bidder, but he thought it would be, they couldn't meet the June 1st deadline. He thought it would be at least 14 to 16 days before they could start getting some of it in. He was going to double check and see what they had in stock that we could install sooner, but he said at least 2 weeks.
2 weeks from when?
2 weeks from Tuesday.
Well, that's the 9th. How many counters are we trying to get a divider up at?
Oh gosh, Karen, wouldn't you say at least 10?
Oh yeah, yes.
Do we think we can get 10 plexiglass dividers up on those between hopefully the 9th and the 15th? That seems doable.
I hope. I don't want to promise anything. I have included Bob in our meeting tomorrow to discuss that further.
Okay.
And that's if everything goes off without a hitch.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Karen, you mentioned spraying the spaces, Luxford Chambers, et cetera. Were you thinking of including courtrooms in that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I am on that task force for the district court. I'm doing actually a lot of things for the courts right now. That's my primary focus right now, is to get them situated so that they can open back up. And that includes things we're doing over at the Hall of Justice, things we might be doing with elevator banks, and potentially utilizing some of those empty spaces that the county is helping to pay the debt service on, to move maybe jury selection over there. It is all up in the air right now, but I'm working with the fire marshal and building and safety to see what investment I need to make into those spaces in order for them to allow me to bring people in, folding tables and chairs.
Okay. And then the secondary question, 605, because, we listened to Kim talk this morning about the concern of the virus coming in once, they're ramped back up with regards to, drug testing. Will that space be sprayed as well? Is that part of the rotation?
No, that is for the sprayer that I just ordered. I was going to be using it on large community areas. Now I can go back and touch base with Kim and with adult probation. I get where I get your concern, and it seems like certainly a legitimate concern.
Okay.
I just haven't talked to her recently about that. But we do have the machine, and it would be probably one a day.
Right. And I haven't been down in that space for a while, so I'll just ask her to reach out to you. How's that?
That sounds great.
What about other spaces where people are coming in unscheduled, into the clerk's office, into the DMV, those sorts of places?
The DMV, we have actually those were one of the first of the two identified spots where we actually have permanent barriers up. It's not plexiglass, it's the real deal, it's glass. So we have those at both locations. We're finishing up next week with some spaces over there that are occupied, the state of Nebraska employees too. We're going to go back and backfill and do their areas as well. So those are taken care of. As far as any front counter spaces or areas that is unique to the individual user. In other words, I'll do my real estate thing. It is on their rent roll. They are cleaning it. At night, we are wiping down hard surfaces, but I don't know that I have plans at this point to spray down all the. First of all, I'd have to kick everybody out for an hour.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's some risk involved here. Some of the signage I'm looking at too, to upgrade the city county building, and while the signage that is in there certainly has served its purpose, and I understand it. It's a little makeshift and frankly a little threatening in some cases. So we're looking to tidy that up too. But I also have to balance that with, placing things on the floor that unfortunately people can fall and trip over as well. So I have to be real careful, and I'll be looping Sue Eckley in on this too. She's got the products and that type of thing I'm going to be using, but she doesn't know my sprayer just arrived last night.
And Karen, this is Pat, and
Hi, Pat.
I think, Scott's here with me, and I think too, we'd like to kind of help with you, talking with you about how we need to disinfect areas and that, and what what's really a good way to do that. I think Scott probably, Scott, do you have some comments?
Well, the spraying concept, we're not really strong on that. Wiping down, like you said, your staff are wiping down high contact surfaces and things like that. That's definitely within the realm of what we should be doing. But the spraying, I'm less supportive of that concept as an approach.
And we've also shared that same thought in reviewing with the state legislature about what they're doing. Of course, you'll hear different things, but we're just sharing with you. And Karen, as you know, our building's been open and operational here, and the staff has done a wonderful job maintaining the building. We have a lot of staff working here, unlike maybe some other areas, because the work we're doing can't be done offsite. We also have a lot of staff working, offsite. So I guess, just following some of those same procedures that we're recommending to everyone else, you have a large volume of people coming into the court situation, which is, concerning. And I think after the visit yesterday, we had folks down there that actually went through the building and were with Jerry Whitty, and I know Rick Tass was there, Scott, Tim Timmons, our disease control manager, and Bernice Afu, who's been working on doing the different things with temperature taking and monitoring and some of the signage recommendations we have. So we actually have some things put together already for you, just based on after we learned that the reopening guidance was going to be for June 8th, but I understand now that's June 15th. So we want to just keep offering as much support and assistance as we work through some of these processes for everyone.
Yeah, has everybody caught that the date was amended? I just want to update everybody. I was talking with some people last night, and last night we still believed it was June 8th. As of this morning, my understanding is NACO had a conversation with the governor's staff, and that was moved back to June 15th, which is better, but not perfect.
And we were briefed on that conversation this morning at our NACO officers meeting. And let's just say that conversation between NACO and the governor's office wasn't the most friendly, but we do appreciate them extending it a week. And part of the problem was there's a lot of county boards that only meet every other week. And with that short of deadline, they wouldn't even have time to put reopening procedures in place.
Right.
And I hope.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
And I hope that one of the things that I want to emphasize is just, because we're working with PPE so much and you've heard about PPE so often, is that this isn't something that the counties and the cities haven't been planning on doing, but there's a scarcity of some of these resources to do things safely. And I think that's one of the messages I really want to carry over to our governor's office too, that we want to do this safely. It's not that people don't want to, but we also have to have access to those, whatever the tools are. We need the shields, however we need it to be done in the safest manner. I wasn't sure why the court specifically, and that's probably a bit of naivety on my part that I'm admitting to all of you, but I didn't quite understand that, especially when you think about the volume of people that involves.
Yeah, it's a huge number.
Scott, can I go back to something you said earlier? You were, say opposed to the sprayer. Could it be utilized after hours though? Your concern is spraying when there are people that will be possibly inhaling, but if we were doing it after business hours, wouldn't it be an appropriate way to disinfect large surfaces and spaces?
My concern is that it's not needed. High contact surfaces are what we're talking about, things that people are going to touch, and doing a spray in an entire room is, we don't think that's necessary. And so that's just our opinion. The effectiveness of that, I don't know. I've not seen any testing on them, but I will say that you're spraying a chemical throughout an entire space. And there could be issues of, if you're doing it every day, there could be issues of buildup of concentrations of that chemical or other things that have not yet been identified or studied. So I'm really not that strongly in favor of doing that kind of disinfection.
And Karen, maybe we can see what chemicals it is that you're using. You know, we have experience looking at those for others, and maybe it could be a thing that we think about that's done on Friday or something, you know, after business hours, and, you know, once a week that there's the deep sort of like, if we want to say, I think you've all heard that term, we're closing and we're doing a deep clean, you know, maybe it's something that we do that way. But I know we work together closely on so many things. I think we can really be helpful, and everybody brings a different perspective into what we're trying to do to come up with the best result. But I know, like, the legislature was thinking about having a company that would come in and do it. Well, then we investigated, and it was like, well, that's going to leave a residue, and doing that every night could be, you know, really dangerous, like Scott's saying. And it's just everybody wanting to do the right thing. So we're going to tell you the honest truth, what we know from the research we have and all the availability to make sure we're safe.
So in terms of action steps here, you know, looks like June 15th is the day that we're pulling the trigger. So we'll be planning on reopening, just so that everyone is aware. The quote, Deb, do you know, has NACO had any more conversations with the governor's office about specific details? I mean, the only quote that I have is, in order for county governments to receive funds, the county courthouse and county offices must be open for business to the public on a non-appointment basis by June 15th, 2020. Do we have any other descriptions? I mean, are we gonna lose out on funds if we're doing social distancing or requiring masks? I mean, does anybody know?
I do not believe that the discussion had gotten down to that specific level.
Okay, all right.
And, you know, as of yesterday at what, 3:30, 4 o'clock, we're still working on the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just.
Yeah, no.
If anything had developed, I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will follow up with them and see if there's additional information coming. Okay.
Okay. I think we need to figure out specifically what the health department will talk with PBC about the spraying tech and which chemicals they're going to be using. I think we need to get a list together of everything we've got on back order and make sure we start figuring out numbers of PPE, plexiglass, disinfectant, those kinds of things we'll need. I think, Captain Whitty, do you want to talk about security a little bit? What do we have any guesses on when the FLIR machine is going to be here?
Well, yes, I got some bad news today that apparently it got actually ordered today. So what I believed to have been ordered 2 weeks ago actually got ordered today. I don't know a lot of the particulars of why that worked out that way, but it appears that it's going to be a bit longer for us to receive that piece of equipment.
What's the estimated arrival time now?
Well, the original was that 8 to 10 weeks time frame. However, what's encouraging is that the way that we caught this is that the vendor contacted us and said, hey, what's the holdup? We want to get this going. We have other people that want this piece of equipment, and they're putting us in the front of the line because we're public safety. And so I'm hopeful that we've still held our place at the front of the line. But yeah, that's not great news.
So we'll have it for the second wave.
We are, as Pat mentioned, Scott and Bernice and Rick and others from the health department came out on Wednesday and did an assessment at the Hall of Justice. We did talk a lot about the security checkpoint and other things. We have Bernice's crew coming out today that is going to be training us on the safest method on how to take body temperatures. We do have thermometers available to us that we can do this. We're not excited about it. We were hopeful that we would be able to get a nurse lined up to give us a hand. I don't know if there's ever been a final answer about that, is whether or not that's something that the health department or the county can provide. But that's one of the things that we're hopeful for. Certainly everybody's probably aware right now that wearing a mask in the courthouse is going to become mandatory effective tomorrow. So we're going to be handing those out tomorrow. I guess that's my security update for you.
Yeah. Pat, what's the likelihood that we can get a nurse stationed at the front of the Hall of Justice?
Well, I think
apparently indefinitely.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is train some of the staff there, because the reality of having somebody else be there all the time is going to be an issue. And that's kind of what we're doing in all the other areas of the city and the county, is training. So you start thinking about, we're going to put a nurse here, then why aren't we putting a nurse over there? And this is really just taking a temperature. It's something that, you know, if you're a parent, you've done it a million times, and there's no contact, it's no touching. And we are going to include in the directed health measure that people must wear a mask in the courthouse, unless there's an issue with that. The other thing is, Kathy Cook told me we have been saving back PPE for masks for the courthouse specifically. So we have those available. I already have some recommendations from yesterday that we're just going through. And Captain Whitty, we haven't even sent these out. We're just looking at them on the team here to get them through back out to you and Karen and others, so that we can review where we're at with this and what else we might need to address with that. And what we found here is, by doing what we've done and then having appropriate signage up, telling people don't come, you know, just that reminder where they come in. And Karen, I agree with you. It's so important that we have something consistent and professional up there, so people really, and highly visible, so people see it. We've had good compliance. I know, you know, we're dealing with all kinds of different populations, demographics, languages and that, but we can assist with that signage, and we'll keep working. Just because we make a recommendation and we start out one way, I think you all know we're going to learn as we go along, and we're going to adjust to whatever is going to keep the staff safe and the public safe. So I don't know if that helps, but that's how we're looking at it as we keep learning more about it.
What other buildings do we need to be looking at training staff to take temperatures at? Courthouse, do we need to be thinking about the DMV? Do we need to be thinking about, you know, I mean, county extension gets a fair number of people sometimes. Do we need to be thinking about, you know, what other facilities do we need to be doing this training at? And should we just have the health department set up a couple classes and have department heads, you know, designate 5 or 6 people in their offices to be trained each and send them to a temperature taking class? I mean, is that the best way to approach this? How do we organize this and get it done?
You know what might be good is if we have, I missed one, I know you said county extension, other. It might be good to just have one of our environmental people and like Bernice kind of go out. Ben Davies been doing a lot of work for us, and that's something we're looking at. Maybe we could go out like where county extension is and others, like we've been doing with other county offices, and try to give guidance about ways they can operate safely, and let them ask us questions, and then train staff too on the temperature taking at the same time. Sometimes that face-to-face contact and being with them is really helpful. It's just a thought because it wouldn't be, hundreds of sites we'd need to go to, but that might be really helpful to staff.
That makes sense. I just got reminded too that because County Extension is, is a child of both us and the university is going to be closed through June. So that might change their deadline down. Captain Whitty, you had a question?
Yes, I respectfully, I don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but the thing is that the Hall of Justice is slightly different. If there's directed health measures that are specific for our facility, but not DMV, for example, that makes us a little bit unique. The number of people that come through our checkpoint is astronomical compared to anybody but DMV. And I still would argue that we have more than they do. The other issue is that the court is going to be having a lot of off-site, as we've already heard, off-site locations. Our security staff is going to be spread pretty thin. Adding another layer, although I view it as necessary, it is another layer to our security checkpoint. Having somebody being able to assist us would certainly be more than just helpful. It's necessary. I have done checking with the nurses for hire at Interim Healthcare, who has had contracts with the county for on-call nursing for the jail, and they can get this done for $25 an hour. And it's one of those things that, we only would use it as long as we need it, and then it would be over and done. To me, that seems like a very small investment for such a large service, because we're going to be taking a cop off of a security duty, and we're going to pay them more than $25 an hour to perform a task that a CNA can do and perhaps should do. But I do respect everybody's decision, your point of view. Everybody's trying to reach and to get something out of you. And I do appreciate your position. However, I rarely ask sincerely, this is something we really do need.
I think we can talk about that more and we can look at it. I think there are other ways we can continue to address that. So, and I think whatever policy decision you make, you're going to be making it for I just think we need to be aware that then it's going to be, why don't we have that same person in all these other places? So that I just want to point that out. That's something to be considered as well. But there might be a mechanism that we can continue to look at. I mean, this is really, I don't think this should be such a big barrier as it is. I'll just say that. And we can have discussions offline.
Yeah.
Captain Liddy, I do have a question. You had talked about the courts having off-site locations. Where in particular are they looking at?
Well, you heard from the court last week in person, and I know that they'd been in contact with Embassy Suites and the Champions Club and the University of Nebraska and perhaps some different high schools. We've also been looking on campus here. It's our position and my feeling that any offsite court should be held right here on the Hall of Justice campus. We have unfinished space, sorry, Karen, in the 605 building that perhaps could be converted into use. We've already partnered with LPD and given up our classrooms in our training area so that court could do jury selection and voir dire in that location. So those are the things that we're trying to get done. I don't want the county to be saddled with the burden of going to Embassy Suites. But if that happens, it's going to stretch us very, very thin. If you can imagine bringing in custody prisoners into embassy suites and then posting guards and trying to separate from the public, it's going to be a logistical nightmare. But those are the things that we're looking at right now, and it's all out of my control.
Well, the good news is the courthouse is going to be open. I don't think we're going to the embassy suites.
Yeah, I don't think we are either. Yeah.
Commissioner Shore?
Well, and I'm wondering if there shouldn't be an email or some type of correspondence from the board to district court, or I guess any of the courts. I am concerned if they're out renting space without our knowledge. I'm very concerned about that. So I don't know if it's appropriate to send an email to court administrators or presiding judges. I mean, as Captain Whitty said, there's a lot of concerns beyond, COVID safety that could be putting people at risk.
I don't think that the district courts, I appreciate their position, their concerns and everything like this, but it seems as though that for them to go out and start contacting them without dealing with the board, getting the, we have to fund this, and we also have to provide the security. It's almost as though they're acting like free agents. And I really think that we need to just visit with them about this.
Yeah, I always like to preface these things before I say them with, I'm not an attorney, but we're required by statute to provide them a courthouse. Looks like that courthouse is going to be open sooner than anybody even thought. So I'm not seeing where we need to be providing, conference room space. But
well, I think their concern was just the ability to spread out. They don't have that ability now, but it sounds like we have enough on-campus locations where they can be spread out.
Yeah, I think.
I really think that we need to provide some written, direction as to how we would like this process to, proceed before they're signing contracts with Embassy Suites and Champions Club and everyone else.
Well, I don't want to be throwing a firebomb, and I feel like maybe I did. I know that they've been checking with those spaces. They're not reserving anything yet. They're just trying to find out what's available. Now, certainly, I think somebody needs to circle around with them, but to my knowledge, there has been nothing that has been inked anywhere.
Okay, and I think that Karen needs to be brought into this discussion in terms of, we do have that empty space, and you had mentioned it briefly, Karen, that what can you do? So, yeah, I think that you and I think that Pat Lopez need to be talking about how we can meet those, the judge's requests or concerns.
Well, I was just wondering too, there's all that money that's supposed to be available for the response. So if we need to do with some of those rooms or whatever, I think we should look and see what's available through the CARES Act.
Yeah.
To assist. And I think having people offsite, like Captain Winnie was saying, I just can't even imagine. I'm thinking just from a public health perspective, how would we deal with that, let alone the security and everything else that would go along with that?
Going to be a heavy lift anyway you cut it.
Yeah.
Chief Deputy Duncan, did you have something?
Yeah, just going back to the temperature screening, and we don't know if that's going to evolve into more of an in-depth health screening at some point or not, but even just at the temperature screening level, we are 100% for that for folks coming into our building. But Jerry, can you give me an estimate of how many people typically enter our doors every day?
So in a typical jury term, we are right at about 2,000. Certainly the juries aren't going to be happening until July. I would predict that in June, we'd be looking at about 1,000 people to 1,200 people a day.
So you've all probably been through that checkpoint, and you can understand the physical configuration and the duties of our security staff up there is so different than your typical office space, where it's a much smaller level of visitor traffic coming in. So it's very realistic to say, hey, let's have a receptionist or an administrative person that typically greets visitors at a really low volume do a temperature check when they come in. But when you look at the configuration of our entry point, The only staff we have anywhere in the vicinity of that front door are our security people, who all have duties already, whether it's checking for weapons in bags and an x-ray machine, using a metal detector wand, scanning contents that are in the basket. It's very much like TSA. And when you look at a volume of 1,000 to 2,000 people coming through our door every day, if we're having to screen every one of those people for a temperature, that's just going to require that we assign a person to do that. And that's taking somebody away from those other important security functions. So I think we're just trying to get an answer, just a solid answer from the board and from the health department. Do either of those entities have the ability to provide a body to put in the front of our entrance point with a thermometer to take temperatures? And then based on the answer to that request, I guess we can start looking at what our other options might be. But we just don't, we're already down one security position as it is, and we've been unable to fill it amidst the pandemic. Recruiting's difficult. So we're down one security guard. Now we're gonna have to take another security guard and really assign them to do temperatures almost exclusively, just because of the sheer volume of our visitors. So I'm hearing a no from the health department on being able to provide that body, I think.
I think that's not what, can I just interrupt a minute? That's not what I said. I said that I think we need to discuss that further. I'm not sure that it needs to be a nurse. And after learning now about the whole issue about not getting the floor machine, we can talk about that. I think that that's an offline discussion along with what else we have here. And I do want to say, I would strongly caution anybody talking about we're going to do a further health assessment on people coming into that building. Then you're getting into a whole different avenue of issues. You're violating HIPAA. You're going to be dealing with singling out people. And that is not something, I'll just say that is one thing I know we're definitive on, that we would not recommend people be starting to do some kind of health assessment. And when you're talking, even when you are talking about the volume of people you have coming in there, I don't know how you would ever get anybody in the building if you're going to stop and start doing something like that. Not only is it not a good thing to do, because there'd be all kinds of legal repercussions from that. So temperature taking is really, as far as I think things should be going, with signage up there telling people not to come in if they have certain symptoms. But we can talk offline and figure out, now that we know the floor machine is delayed. I was under the impression it had been ordered some time ago.
So let's do this. Clearly there needs to be more offline conversations about this. I know we've been going back and forth on the would there or would there not be a nurse available, and maybe it's a nurse and maybe it's not, and whatever. Sheriff's office, can we all agree that we can give our security team here a hard answer by next Tuesday?
Well,
that way.
Go ahead, Krista, go ahead.
So I just wanted to interject that I did have some concerns. I think it was actually the word assessment used last week that triggered me, like that's beyond our scope. But secondly, one of the concerns that I had, and I just want to say this now as you're going to have further conversations so that it can be worked out, is at what point is this person actually going to be taking the temperature? As they immediately enter, before they go through security screening? I'm really concerned about a frontline person being, whether they be isolated or anything like that, because of their safety. We've already seen people, be violent towards someone requesting someone to put on a mask or take a temperature. So I really feel that this person needs to work in tandem with security for those reasons.
We definitely have that worked out. I have a canopy that is from Jim David Saver that we're actually going to be setting outside of the building. So that's where this is going to take place. And then we will have a security agent with whoever's taking the temperatures in order to hand out the masks and inform people of the mandatory mask wear, because that's going to take a certain amount of enforcement. So that is our intention. So yep, bases covered, I think.
And I guess for me, I'm not sure I'm going to have enough information to provide them with a hard answer next week. And it's because you even said, Captain Whitty, that the jury trials aren't starting till August or until July. So it's not like day one, come next Monday, we're going to have 2,000 people through the door. I guess for me, I kind of want to see how it's going. If we've got hundreds of people backed up, you know, all the way down to the state capitol, then yes, we have a problem. And at that point, I, you know, would consider hiring a nurse to speed the process along. But I guess right now, I'd like to see you at least try it with existing staff, and, you know, we'll reevaluate once the process has been evaluated and numbers begin to increase.
Do we know that the jury trials aren't? I just got a message saying that there was potentially a case, that there were potentially cases set for June that would require juries. I think we were told last week that jury trials would be all pushed back to July. I think maybe that's not the case, right?
Okay, so we have two kinds of trials. There are jury trials and there are bench trials. There are 138 bench trials that are scheduled for June in county court alone, and those are going to be in-person bench trials. The jury trials, which are mainly affect our district court as far as numbers, those are going to be pushed back until July. So yes, our numbers for June are going to be significantly less than July. Absolutely, you're 100% correct about that. If we decided today, however, that we were going to hire a interim healthcare or whoever to come in and supply a CNA for us to take temperatures, it would take at least 2 weeks to get that lined up and to get them on board and to be able to put them in place. So there is going to be a bit of a delay. I'm a little bit more of I try to be a little more of a visionary than a reactionary, and I'd like to plan ahead and be able to do something, but I certainly will abide by whatever the county board decides.
Commissioner Amundson and then Commissioner Vest.
You know, Pat Lopez said that she would like a conversation offline. Yeah. And I think that that's probably one of the things that we ought to do is to talk. You folks talk together and decide and figure something out. But I think that we need to listen to what Pat is saying. And otherwise we can keep talking this whole issue over and over and over. So I would suggest that you guys meet with Pat.
Even if we're not agreeing to a hard yes or no by next Tuesday, can we put this on the agenda for next Tuesday to come back to it then?
That's fair.
Yeah, we want to be good team players in all this. And I want to clarify, I was not encouraging screenings at our door. I'm merely trying to convey that since this has all begun, the sheriff's office has seen all kinds of things we never expected we would see at that front door, as far as judges' orders on who can come in and who can't based on physical symptoms. Now it's face coverings. Soon it's going to be temperature checks. So we're just trying to be open and flexible. And also, like Captain Whitty said, we're trying to just look ahead and try to anticipate what might be the next expectation that comes down upon our front door security. So you please tell us who to meet with. We're happy to meet and discuss the best strategy for this. We're trying to do the right thing with limited resources. So,
yeah, Chief Deputy Duncan, Captain Whitty, if you can talk with Pat Lopez here offline, you know, maybe today or tomorrow, I think that could go a long ways in getting this resolved, making sure that everyone just has all the same information. Rachel, it was the treasurer's office that first kind of brought all this to my attention initially. Was there anything you wanted to add? I wanted to make sure you had a chance to have your concerns heard in this too.
I do have concerns.
I'm sorry, Rachel, you're very quiet. I can tell you're talking, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
A little better, not much.
How about now?
No.
Not lots.
I guess I could call in.
Okay. We'll come back to that then. Was there anything else regarding this that we need to? Ann just texted me. Apparently her internet just went down and she's resetting her modem. So that's why she dropped off. If you need her, text her.
Commissioner Flowerday, I also
Please.
wanted to mention that we'll work with Captain Whitty and Todd, but also we want to meet with Karen and talk about that other space that we talked about yesterday, because that would go a long way to mitigating that closeness. So we can have that conversation too.
Okay. Sounds good. Dave, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the board and some of the participants that we do have a working group meeting that we moved up to tomorrow afternoon to talk over some of these issues. So we'll be sending out some questions to Pat and Tim and Scott, just to try to get some general answers so we can get ideas of what's indicated for all the different settings we have throughout the county. So we'll be having that meeting tomorrow. So hopefully we can start moving forward with some of these issues. And if Pat and Todd are able to work out some of the logistics, then maybe that'll help a long ways with our meeting tomorrow. But Karen will be involved. Health department will be involved. Bob will be involved to talk about some of these purchasing aspects. So hopefully we'll have some answers for the board by Tuesday.
Very good. I presume that, and Pat, you probably know this better than I do. I spoke with Jennifer Brinkman from the mayor's office last night. I presume that the city is having similar conversations about getting public buildings open up by June 15th. But I just want to mention that we all need to be working with the city and including them in our conversations, because it's, we're all housed in the same buildings. I mean, it's absolutely same team here. So we got to be coordinating and walking in lockstep together on it.
Agreed, Scott, and we are. So I think that is really important.
So, do all of our, I mean, I understand the sheriff's office is still waiting on the decision regarding a nurse or not. Do all of our other department heads here feel like they have adequate direction? Is there anything else we need to discuss here? Is there anything anyone is waiting on the board for?
Okay. Yes, actually, I'm going to wait, I think, with putting the nurse into this grant, because I wanted to get that submitted tomorrow. And then if you all decide to go in that direction, I can include it in the next round in a couple weeks. Does that sound good?
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I just want to remind you, if we do something like that, if it's COVID related, we will submit that in our budget that goes to the state. So I wasn't going to get into this, but if there's actually somebody there, we have a process for hiring professional technical workers. I would not, I'll just say it now, I would not think that it would be necessary to go and contract with another agency. And I just think you're getting into something that we have people that have no idea what really, we don't know what their experience is, what they've been doing. And I also know it's going to cost more money, I think. So rather than us doing something temporary. So if that's the route we go, I just want to tell you that's how we'll look at it from here.
Well, and one thing that I just want everyone to we as a society, on a global level, we have to wrap our heads around the fact that this is not going away in 4 weeks. It hasn't gone away in 11 weeks. It's not going to go away in the next 4 weeks. This isn't a thing that we're going to do. And I'm actually probably and it almost sounds like I'm saying we shouldn't put a nurse there. I'm actually probably more inclined the other direction, frankly, right now, given the governor's insistence to move forward and the fact that the FLIR machine is going to take a while. But we should recognize that this is going to be with us. We're probably going to have this person at that door or at other multiple doors through the county for a very long time, half a year, maybe more. I mean, really, that's the kind of timeline we should be wrapping our heads around. This isn't going to go away. Not quickly anyways.
That's also the reason we should be looking at more long-term solutions to additional court space than, renting a ballroom somewhere.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, to be perfectly honest, rather than like talking about the nurse, I'm almost inclined just to approve the health department to hire a CNA, you know, and just do it internally through that. Not that I like the idea of adding FTEs at the moment, but I mean, those are, I'd rather make real improvements to 605 than rent it out from somebody else. So
That's also the reason that I liked what Pat said, because I think you want consistency in that whoever's up front there, because you want them to have that relationship with security and be able to work in tandem there.
So, does anybody else have anything on the COVID update and response? Thank you so much for all coming to be here with us. It's a busy time and it's going to be a long day for everybody. So I really appreciate you all making the time to be here.
And I'll ask Angel here to get a meeting set up and include Karen and Captain Whitty and Todd and whoever else you can let me know, okay?
Yeah, Commissioner Vest.
I would like to attend that meeting, Pat, if my schedule allows it. That's what I was going to suggest earlier, is that we all get together and put these concerns on the table so that we all are operating with the same information. So I'd like to attend.
Sounds great. I think having a representative from the board makes a lot of sense.
John, are we going to discuss this at next Tuesday's COVID update?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so it's basically courthouse screening is the topic, or is it a little broader?
I would just say, you know, public building entrance screenings, and let's just make it big and broad like that.
I know a lot of the facilities are wanting to get back.
Just say temperature checks, not screenings.
But they of course have to use.
But I mean, there could be other COVID issues that, you know, pop up in the next 4 or 5 days. So
Yeah, it's just a subcategory underneath the broader COVID-19 update. We're still keeping that standing as a standing item. The treasurer here has texted me. She said she's still having technical problems. Rachel, please feel invited to join us on Tuesday's discussion. Hopefully we can get the tech sorted out by then.
In the coming months and how they will transition to a reopening. So any questions about that?
All right, if no one has anything else, we'll move on then.
Are you saying you are not requiring these facilities to
I think, can I move we adjourn?
Second.
Well, the governor announced in the conference that
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
we are adjourned. Dan, I'll be coming in here just a little bit. I got a couple phone calls to make back to people. Then I'll be coming down to sign whatever I need to sign.